مساء الخير وأهلا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من واشنطن أونلاين. تبدي مكونات الشمال السوري توجسها من عمليات عسكرية أو تصعيد جديد ضد الأراضي السورية بعد فوز أردوغان في الانتخابات التركية، ناهيك عن العراقيل السياسية المرتقبة التي قد يضعها أردوغان لمنع مسار التواصل والتنسيق السياسي بين مجلس سوريا الديمقراطية والمعارضة السورية. هذا ما نبحثه في حلقة اليوم من واشنطن أونلاين، وضيوفي لهذه الحلقة هما السيد آلان ماكوفسكي كبير الموظفين السابق في الكونغرس الأمريكي ينضم إلينا من واشنطن. ابقوا معنا للمتابعة. أبدأ الآن مع ضيفي السيد آلان ماكوفسكي ينضم إلينا من واشنطن. أهلا وسهلا بك سيد آلان، ودعني أبدأ بالسؤال عن تبعات فوز الرئيس أردوغان بالانتخابات الرئاسية في تركيا. قبل أيام من فوزه وعد بتوسعة ما يسميه الرئيس أردوغان بالمناطق الآمنة في الشمال السوري لإرسال المزيد من اللاجئين السوريين إلى داخل الأراضي السورية. هل يمكن لأردوغان فعل ذلك؟ هل يمكن له القيام بغزو جديد للشمال السوري في ظل المواقف السياسية الدولية اليوم من هذه المسألة؟
Look, I don't think so, because both Russia and the U.S. seem to have been strongly opposed to it, and I don't think that Erdogan would make a major move in Syria without Russian acquiescence. So I think it's unlikely. That said, you're correct. He's had his eye on Kobani for a while. He's had his eye on Manbij. He's an unpredictable person. I don't think we can rule it out, but I don't think that it is likely. I think there will be restraint from both Moscow and Washington.
سيد آلان، حضرتك كنت مسؤول في الكونغرس الأمريكي، لو كنت حتى اليوم في هذا المركز، ما هي النصيحة التي ستقدمها للإدارة الأمريكية حول السياسة التي يجب أن تتبعها واشنطن لضمان استقرار مستدام في شمال شرق سوريا، حتى لو كان هناك خطوة مستقبلية باتجاه سحب القوات الأمريكية؟
Well, there's a lot of questions in there. Regarding the U.S. troop presence, I don't see the U.S. withdrawing anytime soon. We have only 900 troops there, plus some contractors. We don't know how many contractors. And there have been very few casualties. It's not controversial at all in the United States. To this point, the troop presence is not controversial in the United States. And I think the presence of US troops is seen as important in the fight against ISIS, particularly to stop the possible reemergence of ISIS. You asked me beyond that, what U.S. policy should be for long-term stability. I think the U.S., as much as possible, should devote development funds to Northeast Syria. It has done so somewhat in the past, and I do think it should make it easier for U.S. businesses to invest there by granting exceptions to the Caesar Act. I think that would probably be the best thing. Now, long term, you're right. I don't think that the U.S. will stay there forever. I think that ultimately the Kurds and the others who live in northeastern Syria will have to make some kind of deal with Damascus. But, and there have been, as we know, talks at different times between the AANES and Damascus. They have not come to anything. I don't really believe a deal with Bashar al-Assad for the Kurds is possible. Seems to me very unlikely. So
وتبقى
But yes, there will come a time when some kind of deal will have to be made with Damascus. But I think a deal will probably only be made when there is a more acceptable government in Damascus.
ماذا عن إمكانية حدوث اتفاق محتمل بين أردوغان ودمشق؟ هل هذا ممكن خاصة في ظل إصرار دمشق على مطالبة تركيا بسحب كل قواتها من الشمال السوري؟ هل يمكن للرئيس أردوغان أن يوافق فعلا على هذه المسألة ويسحب كل القوات التركية من الشمال السوري؟
Yeah, well, they won't do it for Assad. The only country I think that could really have an impact on Turkey in that regard is Russia. And Russia, of course, wants normalization between Turkey and Syria. And it is the reason the normalization process has gone this far is because Russia has leaned on both parties to try to make it go this far. And that's why you've had meetings of senior cabinet officials. It is possible that Erdogan and Assad may meet under Russian aegis. Russia may insist on it, but it's very difficult at this point to see the basis of a real agreement and ongoing relationship. Anything that we would call normalization seems very distant. Assad has been insisting that Turkey withdraw from Syrian territories, as you said, and Erdogan insists that he cannot do that until he has a guarantee from Syria that all the Syrian refugees will be taken back. As far as we understand, Assad has zero interest in taking back those refugees, most of whom are his opponents. And of course, well, I'll just leave it at that. He has zero interest. Assad has zero interest in taking back the refugees, most of whom were his opponents. And perhaps we should add that most of the refugees in Turkey probably have no desire whatsoever to return to Syria. Now, Erdogan has said that 600,000 Syrians have already returned to Syrian territory, that is mainly Turkish occupied Syrian territory. I don't know, it's hard to verify those figures, but I doubt that very many of these refugees have returned to their original homes. I mean, they are mainly from the Aleppo area and other places that are outside Turkish control.
نعم، وأخيرا سيد ألان، اليوم رون دي سانتيز حاكم ولاية فلوريدا والرئيس السابق دونالد ترامب هما أبرز المرشحين لانتخابات الرئاسة 2024 عن الحزب الجمهوري. يعني كلا المرشحين دونالد ترامب ورون دي سانتيز يؤمنان بسياسة انعزالية بضرورة إنهاء ما سماه ترامب بالحروب غير المنتهية في حال فاز أحد المرشحين الجمهوريين. كيف سيكون شكل العلاقة الأمريكية والوجود الأمريكي في شمال شرق سوريا؟
Well, were Trump or perhaps DeSantis to get elected, yes, I think the odds of a U.S. withdrawal would increase dramatically. Some kind of deal with Erdogan. If I'm sure some people in your audience read about the tweet of congratulations that Trump issued following Erdogan's election. It was very effusive and praised Erdogan to the skies as a great leader. They did have a good relationship. On the other hand, when Trump was president, despite twice nearly withdrawing, he was persuaded each time not to withdraw. entirely. And one time he actually put sanctions on Turkey for its invasion until Turkey agreed to a ceasefire. So Trump is unpredictable, but yes, I think if I were a resident of the AANES, I would feel uneasy about the prospect of either of those two gentlemen becoming president. There's a certain irony about talking endless wars in the Middle East. Afghanistan was one thing. We suffered casualties in Afghanistan. Of course, the rate of casualties had declined considerably before we left, but that was partly because the Taliban knew we were leaving. It was also an operation that got a lot of publicity in the United States. Syria is not something that the U.S. presence in Syria is not really an issue in the U.S. media or in the Congress. It's not a matter of controversy. And to the extent people know about it, there is generally a positive feeling about Kurds in the United States and in the Congress, which helps to sustain this operation. So I wouldn't assume, even were Trump or a like-minded person to be elected, I wouldn't assume that would mean a U.S. withdrawal, but I certainly understand the basis for your question.
نعم، شكرا جزيلا لك ضيفي الأستاذ ألان ماكوفسكي، كنت معنا من واشنطن. ختاما شكرا لكل من تابع حلقة اليوم من واشنطن أونلاين. ألقاكم في حلقة جديدة الأسبوع المقبل، إلى اللقاء.